up, everybody? On the NCF&B pod, we've been known to inform you all of some awesome events going on around town, so join us and Walter Magazine at Transfer Co's brand new event space for Taste of the Wild. It's a locally sourced collaborative dinner which is presented by Great Outdoor Provision Company. This event honors the outdoors and emphasizes North Carolina agriculture, ethically sourced meat and seafood, as well as preserved lands where wild ingredients grow.
And you know it's going to be awesome because Locals Oyster Bar, Longleaf Swine Barbecue, Full Steam Brewing, and my buddies over at Y Hill Kitchen and Brewing are all there to discuss sustainability, wild foraged ingredients, and the importance of eating local. Supported by Greenfront Interiors and Rugs and Hampton Farms, guests will enjoy hors d'oeuvres, a 3-course dinner, beer and wine pairings, along with signature cocktails.
If you want to join us, go to tasteofthewild.eventbrite.com. That's tasteofthewild.eventbrite.com, or go to waltermagazine.com/save the date.
Or make it easy on yourself. Just click the show note link on this episode.
You are listening to the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast. Thank you for downloading and subscribing. Coming to you virtually live from high atop the historic Raleigh building in beautiful downtown Raleigh. The NCF&B takes the listener behind the scenes to tell the stories of the people that contribute to the creation of the food and beverage community of North Carolina. And now, the misfits in the dish pit, the faces of the front. They are Max Trujillo and Matthew Weiss.
Hello, and thank you for listening to the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast. I am your co-host, Max Trujillo.
And I am your co-host, Matthew Weiss. And today in studio, we have the Irish Tycoon. You guys know him well from the Hibernian pub, the Raleigh Beer Garden of Guinness Book of Records fame. The one, the only, Mr. Niall Hanley.
Heavily in debt, you mean? That's about it. Go on. What's going on, lads? How are you?
Whenever I think of the word tycoon, I just think like the Monopoly guy with like the monocle. And
Yeah,
like the,
it's definitely me.
yeah, that's what I think. Although you have 2 lenses in the glasses, so that's good.
But a tycoon is like a powerful business tycoon with, like overlord in a positive sense of many things.
Oh, I'm not saying you used the wrong word, Matt. It was very apropos. And that's, so that's maybe where we should start. Let's go from 30,000 foot down to the little droplets of business. So for those that may not know Niall and all of his businesses, Matt, of course, alluded to it into the intro, but you run quite a few places and also foster the ability for other people to run businesses, segueing in that you opened up Morgan Street Food Hall, which has many businesses with inside of it. The Raleigh Beer Garden is a massive beer and drinking institution. Let's just get right into, let's talk about business development. Let's talk about, you're a person that has been developing restaurants and businesses in general for the last, 15 years or so? 20 years? 20 years now. Geez, time is flying. And let's start at the scope of Raleigh and work our way out. You created 20 years ago. What were the interest level of you back then, and why did you get into this type of business?
That's a good question. I suppose 20 years ago was the Hibernian. So literally this spring, I think it's the 1st of May, we're 20 years open, which, as you said, time flies and you're having fun. I think for me back then, it was like, what are you going to do that you can make a living? How do you survive? I grew up in the pub trade back in Ireland. I was lucky enough. My dad had a pub, had a farm. When I think about the upbringing, you're either pulling pints or pulling calves. And it was a great education. It was a great all-rounded education in regards to how to communicate with people, etc., etc. Did I ever think that I'd be in America, all this time down the road after 10 years old in Ireland? No. Consequently, I did. I guess being in the bar business is in the blood. Being in the restaurant business is in the blood. I might have some sort of an acumen, be it good or bad for business, but I do it. And really for me it was opportunity, so opening the Hibernian was an opportunity to make a living in the States, and that's 20 years ago. And then from there it was about, what does the city need, or what did my street need at the time, which was Glenwood. But back then there wasn't a lot going on. You
were working at the James Joyce pub in Durham at the time, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know you kind of had the itch to open your own thing, but what was the need for the Hibernian at the time, or why in Raleigh? Because you would think, I'm working in Durham, let me stay in there.
But it was a different market, it was a different city, a coming up market. I remember seeing Sullivan's Steakhouse had just opened.
Yeah.
And on the street, I mean, there wasn't a lot. There was Sunflowers was there, right next door to the pub.
Mm-hmm.
Steel Porcupine was there, and that's now where Mel Mushroom is.
Okay.
I think Inoteca Vin was open at the time, right?
Inoteca Vin was open, and Sullivan's open. But I remember looking at the audience anyway, and with Sullivan saying, right, those guys look like they drink pints. Yeah. and I says, I figure I can get them to come before or after dinner for me. So it was just opportunity, We had partners in Durham, and me, I kind of want to go out on my own and do it, and that was it. I met a guy, a fellow called Chuck Willingham, who we were introduced by a realtor in Durham, good old buddy of ours, Terry McCabe, and he set the two of us up, and that was it. And we kind of need each other for the money at the time, and off we went to the races.
I guess that's a big factor too. They're the guys that have the cash, and then the guys that have the ideas. Many times they're not the same guy.
No,
or gal.
Often not.
Yeah. And when you start out, it's like anything. Big thing for me was always trying to figure out how to acquire real estate. So I think we were in the space maybe 6 months, and then we bought the property, and that's a big one. That's, if anybody can buy real estate, obviously down the road, get the option, buy the bricks and mortar. I will tell you it's a good thing to do.
And you pretty much exclusively do business that way now, right?
I do. There's a couple of ones that I have. Chaco, used to be Dos Tequilas Chaco, but Chaco across from Solis is a leasehold. That lease is actually coming up right now pretty soon. So I have to decide what I want to do with it. Do we keep going? We've been in there 15 years,
Right.
But pretty much everything else is all own real estate.
Developers in general, you have to be strategic about what you're going to do. You yourself, it seems like you're more focused directly into food and beverage. Let's speak about that a little bit more, about need, about want, and why you pursue that.
I'm probably not that smart.
Well, maybe that's a good thing, right?
So I don't know. For me, it's a bigger picture too. It depends. I would look at a building, obviously doing something like Beer Garden, even Solis. They're very specific. They're specifically for what I want to do within the space, rather than adding the residential on top, which is probably a smart move. I'm not saying. I think it's the way to go. For me, it was my bandwidth. That was about it. You kind of stick to the water that you're good at. And I know how to build a building that serves a restaurant, and that's kind of our success. And then from even the business model or financial model, being the owner of the building and being the operator really helps you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess worst case scenario is if your idea for that business doesn't work out, you could rent it out to somebody else who wants to do it, but you still reap the benefit of the ownership.
That's the beauty, Now, again, it's not bad to rent. I mean, obviously, if you've got a concept that really works and you want to get it out, everyone doesn't have the option to buy something.
Of course.
And again, I was lucky I bought in a market that was a little bit lower. I mean, sure, good God, the prices now are insane, Not a time to be buying, but, we always say that, and then 10 years later we go, why didn't we buy? It keeps going up,
Right. It's reflective of the time.
Yeah. So I think for me it was just, maybe it's an Irish thing, I always wanted to have the bricks and mortar. Is it detrimental? Probably not, but, is it something good to do? Yeah. And if you can get an option on a piece of real estate, definitely get an option.
Yeah. With you, it's not just the luck of the Irish, because you do, like we said, have this vision. And so talk about that in terms of, you have a vision how to build a building, but not only how to build a building, but like where you opened the Hibernian, you saw that Sullivan's was there and there was going to be people, and then that was going to growth. But now you've repeated that a couple of times. You opened up the station on Person Street and that area. I have to say, for people that haven't visited that area or spent time, and maybe it's just my age at this point, but that's the Person Street area. It's like my ideal hangout area. It's classy, it's fun, you have a lot of great options, and you really helped to kind of jumpstart that area with the station there. So how do you and then you're doing it again with where Morgan Street is? Is it just specific things, or are there things that you are getting data from?
Well, you look at a market. I mean, look at where the station is. I mean, you've got how many residents that are all sitting.
But were those residents all there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I think so. I mean, even, Jesus, how long is the station open? Maybe 6
years, I think. Yeah.
So, I mean, they're there. You know that if you build something, you've got people who are going to walk from that neighbourhood, and that's exactly what we get. Now you have tourism coming in. You have people outside the area actually coming in.
Right.
Because of choices, You've got all these new restaurants that are opening with Scott, and I don't want to leave the poor man out. What's the name of the kid that has the pizza shop?
Anthony.
Anthony, awesome. Met him and
Oakwood Pizza Box,
his parents the last night. So, I mean, they're all fabulous spots, you know. So now you have choice. So it's very funny. I was there actually on Friday night, and there's a buzz. There's people sitting outside on the street. There's people walking the street. So you're starting to see this density of the crowd amass. But for me, it was about... there's people living in the neighbourhood. They're going to come somewhere. They're going to come to you on a Monday night, Tuesday night, or Wednesday night to have something light. Also, real estate, opportunity for me to buy or acquire that building. How it looked, it was a gorgeous space. It was kind of in there. So that's half of it too, you know. I mean, if the opportunity abounds, particularly in a place like that, which was a rehab for me, you know.
Yeah.
Well, one of the keys was, well, here's a beautiful building. Will the neighbourhood work for this particular piece of property? And obviously it did.
Oh, and that area too is kind of it's come up. I mean, the Oakwood neighborhood was not necessarily a nice neighborhood for a while, and then it started to come up. And then I think the food and beverage industry kind of helps it out.
Yeah,
like
it does. Well, it's choice. It's like anything. You know, you hear this. You talk about development, and you talk about. When a city starts to hit a crescendo or get very, very busy, you talk about, well, what comes first? Is it the options to eat and dine, or is it the residents? And it's always the options. You know, if people see a cool neighbourhood evolve and you've got, 5 or 6 or 10 little bars, well, development rapidly comes in afterwards because they're advertising it. Look at all the brochures that you see for a big building or whatever it is. It's all about these beautiful places that are all around there to go, yada, yada. So I think... it's hard to go wrong in Raleigh now at this stage. Although you can be one block, one block off, and you're screwed. And we've all seen that 1,000 times where a concept is a great little concept, but they're just out of line of sight, or and it doesn't really work. Maybe in the age of social media that's changing, but for years and years and years, if you couldn't be seen or if you weren't within the precinct or the vicinity, you were kind of screwed.
You're still a destination.
Yeah.
So where does that put us? It's an interesting thing, Max. I know, and that you've said that you want to open up a place in Charlotte called the Raleigh Beer Garden or something like that.
Charlotte Beer Garden.
Maybe the Charlotte Beer Garden.
I think they'd beat the hell out of me if I did.
I think you were quoted somewhere and saying, I'd like to open up in Charlotte and call it the Raleigh Beer. No, it'd be funny though. But now that you're looking to expand outward, and maybe you do already have other businesses are interested.
Hopefully we'll be open in November. So
in Charlotte.
Yeah, we're well.
And it's going to call the Charlotte Beer Garden. Cool. That's an interesting just dynamic right there, or comparison is, where is Raleigh in terms of population growth and ability to be a major player, or at least, because I think now if you look from outward, like how, let's say, the big chain restaurants see us, right? Like, we're a third-tier market, I think, still, as opposed to a second-tier market. Would that be accurate? Or
I think there's a bit of a grey. I think there's an overlap. And it's also about choice. It's like, think about customers. Customers are becoming very discerning in regards to what they want.
Yeah.
You could nearly drill into... You look at Charlotte, first of all. So for us, going into Charlotte was essentially, again, a piece of real estate came up, and then it was about looking outside that area and saying, well, can the area support the piece of real estate that's available to me? Yeah. And it can, because there's just...
What area in Charlotte, by the way, are you?
We're in the South End. We're right on Tryon Street.
Okay.
So it's about 4 blocks from down, but it's just the density of people living all in the area, just absolutely huge. And it's all younger audience, millennials, yada, yada, yada. So I think... Raleigh is, if you look at how both cities are evolving, Charlotte it's massive, and it's only getting bigger, and it's becoming Atlanta, I guess, if not nearly there already. Still has a small town feel, but it's getting there, and the proposed developments out there are to that scale. Raleigh's getting there too, but it's just, what are we, maybe 6, 7, 8, 10 years behind, but I think there's slightly more discerning. I don't know. I think the way that we're evolving in regards to districts and areas for food and beverage are very unique. We have these distinct areas where Charlotte's very rambling. You have the downtown area, but then outside that you're going from block to find a bar or whatever. Big tier restaurants are going to go where marketing or where they see chatter. I give a huge amount of responsibility and credit to an organisation like GRCVB, who pushes and markets the city as a premium destination, or that we have all these cool things. Every time somebody does something great, GRCVB is shouting about it. writers.
What's GRC?
Greater
Raleigh Visitors Convention.
Oh, okay.
So, writers
GRC,
come to town about it. When you see these stories about Raleigh, top 10 this, top 10 that, best, that's coming from somewhere.
That's how they got us.
Yeah, of course.
It's the best place to live.
Yeah.
We came out here, and they're pretty damn right, though.
Right.
They hit all the marks, right?
Yeah.
And so, but recently I just wrote an article in Raleigh Magazine. Will be out in the next couple days. But it's about that. It's about the growth of this town is now becoming sexy to the outside world.
Yeah.
Bigger business will start coming in
Yeah.
here, which is good
Yeah.
for a lot of people, but also will take away the quaintness of our town, right? And so but you can't have both.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get away from Los Angeles because I wasn't down with the big city market, but then I also went, well, I really need a great place for a ramen shop. I really where's a good place to do this or just whatever. I want selection, and we didn't have it.
Yeah.
So we're kind of stuck in the middle, but we're at that precipice right now. Right?
Yeah, it's coming, and I suppose that's the other aspect too. Is that with that, then the prices and lease rates and all this stuff started going through the roof, and then you have the vicious circle that goes, well, do we want it? We don't want it. We're pricing out the little guys. I mean, that's what happens. That's what we're kind of striving for.
Yeah.
For the city to growth and give us all those choices. It's kind of a vicious circle.
So let's talk a little bit. Let's get, because we are a food and beverage show. We don't have to be all business all the time, and we'll probably seep our way back into business at that point. But beer obviously seemed like a pretty important thing to you. Mm. You open, of course, the Hibernian, and you open a second Hibernian, and then of course the station and all, and then you just went, oh fuck it, I'm going to open up the biggest goddamn beer garden in the world. Is that correct, as far as pints are concerned?
Yeah, it was a moment of insanity.
Now,
so, well, I'll tell you how it happened. It was. We were building the space, right? So when you build anything, you want to maximise the footprint, right? So the beer garden is about 9,000 square feet, 2 floors, but you're looking and you're going, well, this looks good. How many taps am I putting in? You're trying to think what's going to give you an edge above. Bit of marketing, right? Yeah. I didn't know it was going to work as well as it did, being very honest. So that was literally it. I said, well, I wonder who has the most taps in the world. And, is it fucking ridiculous, or can we actually beat it or at least match it, So it turned out it was, I think it was a yard house in Santa Monica or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Been there many times.
Right.
That's
So we started looking at it and said, fuck, let's do it. Go on, for shits and giggles. Now, that leads you, obviously, a certain number of things. Obviously, choice. It was very funny when we opened first. Well, what was amazing about when we opened first is the second day after opening, Forbes did a story. International, move over Munich, Raleigh, North Carolina is the world's largest beer garden.
Wow.
And it went apeshit.
Yeah.
Literally, it was nuts. It was horrible because it was our opening week. We had lines down the corner of the block past, nearly touching Sullivan's. On a Tuesday. It was amazing. Insane.
Do you attribute that to the Forbes article?
I put it this way to you. We pinged. GRCVB has this metrics that they use for pings for North Carolina, all over the world where they pick them up or whatever.
Sure.
And I think we were trending globally.
Wow.
I mean, national newspapers picked it up fucking everywhere because Forbes had said, well, who's these guys? And then people had this vision of huge beer garden, Olmec's bigger than we are. But yeah, we have more taps. So it was nuts.
How did Forbes find you?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think,
completely...
but I think it was GRCVB again did a story and just sent it out there or whatever. But people were writing.
This episode not brought to you by the GRCVB,
but could be.
But we'll take a check.
Hey, listen, I am on the board and I'm a fan.
All right, so the check out to NCF ampersand.
Yeah.
Before who this episode is brought to you by is Triangle Wine Company.
There you go.
Boasting 4 locations. They don't, I believe, own the buildings, but maybe, if Chris
might own a couple of those buildings. I think the one in Southern Pines it might have something to do with on that one.
We'll have to ask Chris about that.
But Triangle Wine Company sells beer, just like Niall does at all these places, and wine. No, whatever you would like, they're there to help you out. Go to trianglewineco.com, use /NCFB, and get a discount because you're a listener to the show. And go check them out. Tell them that Max and Matt and Niall and Keeley, they all said hello. But, all right, so Guinness... legally said you are the biggest one.
Right. So
how did that happen?
So when you reach out to Guinness and you tell them what you're attempting to break, they verify it. They come down. They send an individual. It was a fun night. They literally open every tap, make sure that they're all working.
Sure.
And then they're all set up, and they've got a big placard that they give you, and you're off to the races.
They make sure that like 83 of them weren't just all Bud Light.
Yeah, well, truthfully, yeah. So we actually we have 2 records.
Yeah.
So one is actually most number of different beers in an individual bar or restaurant, and the second one is most number of taps.
Right.
Yes.
And this October,
Okay.
Wicked Weed is coming in, and they're going to give us 140 taps, complete tap takeover.
Holy shit. 140 different Wicked Weed beers?
All different, yeah.
I just
Not Bud Light, but still the same Anheuser-Busch Corporation.
I want to give you your propers because, it's the record for most varieties of draft beer on tap at 369 at the time.
There you go.
Has that changed or
Oh,
grown,
I'm sure
or?
we've blown through that already.
Oh, blown through that,
Yeah,
okay.
Easily, yeah.
And then the second record is for the most different brands on tap.
There you go.
And you had 203 of those, different brands of beer.
Now, I think the way, and if it's still set up the same way, one floor is domestic,
Yeah.
and one floor is
So first floor is what we call
European.
local, second floor is international. So it's all local beers,
Yeah.
which is nice. And obviously I think it's our busiest floor. Just people engage it. It's very funny too. What it does is it brings in a little bit. I think the funniest story we had a busload of Germans, like 45 dudes that just showed up.
Sounds like the beginning of
Off I-95 heading south, and they stayed for 3 days and drank every beer in the place. Truthfully, because they heard about it.
Yeah, they're like, I'm gonna work my way through that place.
So I'm going awesome.
Is this like, I sound naive when I say this, but does Guinness World Records have anything to do with Guinness, the brewery?
No, not anymore, no. I think they're an independent company. I think it's just all marketing and brand. And you pay for it too. I mean, once you reach out to them and say, this is our record, it's not they're just going to show up.
Well, it's like Michelin, right? Like Michelin is the tire company, but also is the restaurant rating company, and a lot of people don't realize. But they just kind of went, oh, it's a good idea.
Yeah, that's kind of separated out. Because Guinness now is owned by Diageo, so it's like they're much bigger. And it's
but at one time it was the same group?
Yeah, way back, yeah.
Interesting. I always loved one of my favorite stories, and I think maybe Niall, I told you this offline a long time ago, but about Guinness, that they released a statement back in the early 90s about to the locals, to the local Irish, like, we just a heads up, we changed our recipe. We just want to let you know that through like the advancement of technology and this and that, we changed it. To which they received the worst response from the community. It was kind of like when Coke released New Coke and everybody rejected it and freaked out. And they literally were dumping barrels of Guinness in the streets and like all of this like protesting. So then a week later, or however much time later, Guinness put a redaction back in and said, just so you all know, we change our recipe all the time because of the way the crops are, way, whatever, the science and just whatever it is. Yeah. We change it to give you what we think you want based off of like taste tests and all this. It's just we've decided to let you know. So thanks, community. We'll keep our trap shut. Keep drinking Guinness. And it's just like everyone's standing there with their dumped out bottles of beer and all that going, oh shit!
I don't remember that.
That's just like the ignorance is bliss. It's like how much honesty do you want?
Yeah.
And sometimes maybe not that much.
Yeah, I'm gonna burn all my Nikes to say F you to Colin Kaepernick and Nike. It's like, yeah, but now you don't have any shoes, and you already bought those shoes.
Paid a lot of money for them. And another thing about kind of ties in is you mentioned Michelin versus Guinness. So Michelin, why did they start that guide? Because they want people to drive places because it uses tires.
Exactly.
And this is a little known fact from your hometown. Not a lot of people know this, or maybe they do, but at the turn of the 20th century, so we're talking like early 1900s, Los Angeles had one of the most intricate local train systems in the world. Now, today, everybody knows that Los Angeles is a driving city and public transportation is
traffic and worse
terrible.
Public transportation.
Yeah, and maybe it's increased since you and I have left. But nonetheless, Michelin actually paid to have that train system debunked and shut down so people would buy tires and drive cars.
Dude, watch Roger Rabbit. That's the plot line of Roger Rabbit. Who Framed Roger Rabbit is all about the transportation industry and getting highways instead of trainways. That's the subtext of the whole movie.
Wow. There you go.
But
supported by Michelin.
Yeah. So all right, now let's talk about some other things because you're not just doing beer.
Yeah.
I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the thing that breaks your heart so much. And we were on the Raising Raleigh podcast back a few months ago, where your business partner over at Watson Ward, Patrick Shanahan, who's the host of the show, I just laughed my ass off, and so I just want this story to be told one more time. But unfortunately, the Hibernian burned.
Yeah.
The joke was it's burn again, right? Hibernian again. That's a horrible joke, and I can't believe I'm saying this to you.
Haven't heard that. Haven't seen that one.
Yeah. So it burned down, and I think you even said that while it was burning down, you saw some asshole with a camera taking pictures of you at the worst moment of your life. You're like, this was like a child of mine burning, going getting killed, and some assholes taking pictures of me, and that asshole was Patrick Shanahan, your business partner of Watson One.
Absolutely, Dick extraordinaire.
But I mean, I know that it sucks to talk about this, but you get the call in the middle of the night.
No, I didn't actually. It was 10:30, 11 o'clock the next morning. We were open for business.
Okay.
So very simply, staff were all in. Fire started about 10:30. St. Stephen's Day. Something happened. There was a grease fire. A thermocoupler in a grease unit went off. So it didn't work. So what happens is the grease keeps heating. So constantly those things go on and off just to keep the oil at temp. Flashed over, blew up. Ansel system went off, but didn't work. Didn't put it out properly. Old as balls building. Dry wood, and it ran with the rafters. And the thing was, gone in 30 minutes. But the shittiest thing was, so I get a phone call. Jerry McDermott, my GM, was there, and he calls me up and says there's a fire at the pub, and I'm thinking, well, put the fucking thing out.
Yeah.
It's like something's going on in the kitchen or whatever. And then I jump in the shower. I didn't think that it was, I thought he was a grease fire, some shit going on. So by the time I get out of the shower and I'm jumping in the car, there's like 5 calls and it's gone. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I suppose the frightening thing was one of the fire dogs comes up to me and says, we think there's somebody in the green room, the bottom room, like a body.
Oh, no.
So everything then changed. Then it wasn't about shit. It was about who the fuck is in there and what happened, right? Consequently, it wasn't.
Thank God.
But it put everything into perspective a little bit,
So they got everybody out?
Yeah. I mean, as I said, it was 10:30 in the morning. We're prepping for business.
Where were you as an entrepreneur? How many businesses did you own at that time?
Oh, Christ, I can't remember.
Or at least at the very least.
Well,
Hibernian wasn't your only business.
It's 6 years ago. Yeah, I think Hibernian, Carey, Solace, and maybe the station was open too.
Yeah. So you were like kind of a burgeoning
Tycoon,
right?
Yeah.
But
right.
this was like the beginning of your whole business structure.
Yeah.
And for those that don't live in Raleigh and don't know what we're talking about, Hibernian is this classic. I mean, even the attention to detail of the exterior of both that Hibernian and also, all the Hibernians, they have this great Irish pub look where the exterior of it looks like you just were whisked away to the green, the Isle. What is it? The Green Isle?
Emerald Isle.
Emerald Isle. Sorry, thank you. And but this is your baby. This is the number one. So that was challenging, but you obviously got through it.
I did, yeah, but it's very funny. I have to say, when you observe humanity as a whole, it's really the shit after it. It was, how people perceive shit. And of course, it's, he burnt it down.
There were rumors.
And I'm going, for fuck's sake, you don't burn down your highest performer. There was other places I should have burned fucking down, but that wasn't it,
Yeah.
But how, and I suppose when you don't put yourself in the situation, how easy it is for people just to go,
well, you're a public figure in this regard because you employ a lot of people.
True, yeah.
And anyone, look, like I don't own anything, but I've hired a lot of people and I've also fired a lot of people.
Yeah.
So as many people that love Max Trujillo, there's a good pocket full of people that go, fuck that guy because he fired me because I'm a shitty employee and deserve to get fired. They don't really say that part out loud, but that's usually what happens. But you make friends and you also unfortunately make enemies the bigger you get and the more you do. So at least from what I've known is you're a shrewd businessman. People will be like, that motherfucker fired me. But also, you have your vision. You have your head up. You're like, the city needs this. The city needs that. I don't mind making $1 while I'm doing this, but you are providing you're providing jobs. You're an employer. You're a taxpayer. You're like, you're good for the economy, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about what you're going to continue to do.
What am I going to do next? Good God.
What about Aunt Betty's?
Yes, Auntie Betty's is going to open up. It's a little vanity project, really, for me. I've named it after my aunt, Greg Ewan. is going to be the managing partner. He was, Greg he was down surfing, was a great kid, rock star. So he's going to be in there, kind of running the show. Hopefully that'll all be open in about 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah, and it's a gin bar.
It's tiny, so I'm kind of letting Greg pull the vision together because he obviously is the creative on this. Gin, absinthe, but it'll be all craft cocktails as well.
Yeah. And this is, location-wise, this is on the same block as Morgan Street.
It is, yeah. It's right on the corner. There's just a little steel door right on the corner, and it's a tiny space. We're going to do, overlap for parties for Morgan Street and stuff like that. But it's cool. It's nice.
Yeah. One thing you don't do is boutique and tiny, right? Because
that's boutique and that's tiny,
right? I'm saying this is like
I've heard of that. Yeah, I seem to go
change,
crazy.
Right?
Yeah,
Watson Ward is massive. For those that don't know, Watson Ward is technically a subterranean bar with obviously a large patio that's outdoors, of course. Yeah. But you walk in. The first time I ever walked in, I just thought it was going to be similar to Fox or Foundation, but no, it's like the Mall of America down there. It's massive, and you have 4 bars?
Yeah. Well, there's 3 bars inside, and then the one big patio bar outside.
Yeah.
But again, with that project, the space kind of tells you what it's going to do. Particularly in a rehab like that. It pretty much built itself. The other thing, as I said, when you go back to buying a piece of real estate like Charlotte now, it's nearly 16,000 square feet.
Yeah. Are you going to try to break the Raleigh Beer Garden record? Yeah.
So, the premise is it'll be marketing, right? But I see a healthy rivalry,
Yeah.
Because we're there, we could break another one 3 months later back in Raleigh.
A smart man would say, don't break it too hard.
Yeah, I know, I won't.
Don't be like, we tripled it. It's like, well, then they'd never be able to get the
But I do have sort of these visions of doing a little beer tour back and over between beer gardens, You kind of get the bus together and make sure it has a toilet on board.
Oh. Many toilets. You have 45 thirsty Germans trying every beer tap. Yeah.
Well, the NCF&B is not a stranger to the bus tour. Maybe we'd have to jump on that and help you out.
Do the beer garden bus tour.
So it's fun. So I suppose the big thing for me is, utilize the space because I'm purposely building it. So if I'm going to do a footprint, I'll do a footprint that makes sense,
Yeah.
But again, Morgan Street, that just built itself, technically, But the layout was there and, it's big. That's 27,000 square feet.
How does that go on for you? What is a food? You essentially have a mall, a food right there.
Yeah.
How is that for you right now? It seems like it's always changing, just like any food hall in general. There's always new people coming in and out. Yeah. What's your perspective?
Well, actually,
of it?
not a lot. Now, there's 1 or 2 that have kind of flipped out on it, and for good reasons. And there's nothing, nothing bad that they did. It's just either bandwidth or whatever the hell it is. Mm-hmm. But we're doing really well. We're really, really happy, really content. And I think that talks a little bit about food. Talks about food trends nowadays,
Yeah.
And I think if you look at our audience, we always used to say that in the bar business, or at least the Irish pub business, every 8 years your customers kind of age out. They get married, they get sense, they stop making donkeys out of themselves, That being said, there is definitely a new way of eating, and I think it's about choice, and it's about places like food halls. They're not new, they've been around for years, they're just markets. But there's definitely a process. And I think you're going to see a lot of the fine dining stuff and even some of the bigger restaurants scale down into kind of this business model where you're overwhelmed with choice. It's in, it's out, it's quick. A lot of people don't have patience anymore to eat.
Yeah.
They want to be fed fast, particularly younger audiences. They want to be fed fast, Instagram, get the hell out.
Yep.
Go to the next experience, which is, it's amazing. You see it.
Yeah.
There's a big balcony up there and it's priceless. I'll sit sometimes and I'll just watch people and it goes through the motions, take the pics of the food, but they are gone. It's like turnaround time, 20, 30 minutes.
We need Forrest Mason to do one of his famous time lapses from up there on top of the Morgan Street food hall.
It'd be cool. But it's great. And I have to say, we've been lucky. We're open over a year now and it's crushing it, thank God.
What, like you said, food halls is definitely a trend.
Yeah.
Where were we recently? Oh, it was in Nashville where that woman said, no, don't use the word trends. There's no trends, which I'm still trying to figure out what she was talking about, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah. We'll say that the food hall is definitely a thing. What did you see that said, okay, where was the process there that were you traveling? Was it Charlotte that said, okay, I think food hall will work in Raleigh? And just in that time, you had a lot of other food halls opening in the Triangle. Yeah. So was there was a building, a neighborhood? What was the process? Okay.
So again, it was a building. It's very hard to visualize anything unless you have something and you fit. For me, anyway, particularly if it's a rehab, you kind of really like looking at it, and I could kind of, I'm visual. I'll get the thing done in my head before it even comes together.
Okay.
I really like the aspect of the design and build of it.
Do you have any architecture background?
No. Horticulture, would you believe? So hence plants everywhere.
Okay.
Love plants. But I really enjoy the design aspect of it. You know, I work closely with New City, and they'll put, one-dimensional stuff on paper for me, and then we knock it out from there. Well, I actually do 3D renderings too and some stuff, but they're awesome, and I kind of just have a free rope to kind of go nuts inside. But really the thing about that was great location, what's happening. You know, I think if you look at planning down the road, which I didn't do, I just presumed it was coming, and all these buildings are coming up. Like WeWork just opened. I don't know how many people are in that building. Now they're building another one. I mean, that's like a new town opening up right beside you every 6 months. So
and you have that Dillon
it's
hotel.
Fab. I mean, all the shit that's out. It's fantastic. But for me, it was about choice. And also the idea of a food hall is how's somebody going to get in and open in a downtown market? I'm not saying that there was an altruistic aspect to it, but, we've definitely shared a bigger burden on some of the openings for some people in there. And that being said, they're great. I mean, they're younger businesses that probably wouldn't have an opportunity to have been open or to get open downtown.
I was going to say that same point. I mean, a lot of food hall places, and I'll talk about like South Point, the mall in Durham. The entire food hall area is basically like a riff off of food trucks, right? Yeah. There's a lot of food trucks that have an alternate location there, and it's like this barrier to enter into the market. It seems like a little hot dog stand might be the easiest way to get there, and a food truck might be the next. And then if you got into a food hall, that would maybe be the next place with you got a brick and mortar. There's probably already hoods put in, and there's a grease trap put in. So now you just got to fill it with some things. I'm sure that if the concept is right, there's probably some collaborative investing, within wherever. And so as long as you have a good idea and maybe a few shekels to put together, you can probably get the business.
And the other thing with that, too, is that there's density. I mean, the whole point about it is you see some of the businesses will do more money than other businesses in there, but the point is they're all there. There's thousands of people coming in there every week. I mean, thousands. So you're in a busy. So I was always a great believer in synergy. When you open in a place, look for something else to open up. Once they start opening up, then more people start come. Like Person Street, you can see the evolution of all of it. I mean, now that there's density or choice, there's more people showing up in the market. Same thing works for a food hall.
So the one thing that it doesn't seem we have a plethora of is employees. And I know that for Morgan Street, I would assume that the businesses run individually. But, almost to a person, everybody that we've come that owns a business, a food-related business, always is having their main issue they talk about is hiring and staff.
Sure.
So what are your thoughts on that? How do you see that potentially?
Well, I suppose the only other thing is that, businesses have to start either offering better packages, better interactions with the staff. How do you motivate people to want to work with you? Mm-hmm. That's a big statement, because after 20 years, shit's different, and you're dealing with a newer team member, Mm-hmm. The other thing is perceptions. It's like, technically I started as a bouncer. My first job in America, I was working as a bouncer in South Boston, Mass. But you tell somebody that now and say, well, work hard, dude. You can.
You were a bouncer in Southie?
And it's the truth.
Oh, wow.
I used to live in Boston.
You must have some good stories there.
I have a few.
Well,
drinks are needed for those ones, though.
Okay, that'll be on like the outtakes of this podcast. You have to tell us some.
But but it's just different. It's nowadays, what do people want? I mean, for me, it was a case of, well, I'm back in the bar business. So there was success to be given out of it. But I think a lot of times people think that they get into the restaurant business and they think that they can't, from being a server or a bartender, eventually get to their own place. And I'm here to say you can. That's the bottom line. You can. So I think companies like I should be doing better. And, we're working on newer programs, is to kind of find that talent, bring it up inside you. And also then, what you pay people. I mean, it pays... It's going up. People need to get paid more, whether it's bonus, incentive, or whatever it is, So I think that sort of stuff is happening. The other problem that you have is in a very busy emerging market, people are they're jumpy. You'll see
there's always a better job or grass is greener.
Yeah, somebody's got a resume and he's like 10 jobs in, 5 years. And like, well, what are you doing,
You know what I found to be interesting is in staffing Y-Hill, previous guest, of course, and just around the corner from Morgan Street. But when I was helping to staff I interviewed a lot and hired a lot of people that had never been in the food and beverage industry. And I thought it to be an interesting take in that I said it to Matt too. I was like, I kind of think this is indicative of our industry just, here locally in Raleigh, is that this aspect, this food and beverage industry is becoming so popular and sexy, and there is a dollar to be made there. That we were getting people that were IT recruiters, or they were working in real estate, or just just trying to do something that wasn't this, and they came and they were kind of like, I have no experience, and through the vetting process of interviewing and all, you could just tell these were just good people, good centered ground, and it's like, yeah, you could do this, and I had enough chutzpah to say that I can train you to be that person and do that. I think we, as the food and beverage industry, should start pulling from other places because we have people here. Yeah. And I think people will start to know and understand that, hey, this is a valid industry in our town to grow. We're like looking like there's a a farm team, AAA baseball team where all these other servers from LA, New York, Chicago, New Orleans they're just going to come. But I think that's a unrealistic aspect. I think we got to look at what we have here and make, as you're saying, Niall, this industry more obtainable to like what people would normally do if they were not in this industry. Like, do you have a 401k package? What's your healthcare package? What are all these things that could get me to work here? Because I think at some point, it's a good enough industry to make a career out of.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think the other aspect too about having somebody come in that doesn't have experiences, there's no bad habits picked up.
That's a great part.
If your program is really good, and listen, all programs are lacking. There's always people that'll get slipped through the cracks. You hate to see somebody go for whatever reason, but I think that's it. I think we just all have to get better at the programs and how we're training people, and that'll change.
Yeah.
But bring in, by all means. I mean, we've definitely done that in the past, and you're right. Sometimes they're rock stars.
Yeah, I don't see how you couldn't, because as we've talked about, I mean, the competition for, it's like the NBA, where it's like the workers in some ways are running the asylum, right? Or the players have the power, because there's 4 food halls, literally. A fourth to be open with whenever Durham gets off the ground. Yeah. But you have 2 in Raleigh, the one in Chapel Hill, and I mean, the people were, even before those establishments were created about lack of staff population. Yeah. So I can't even imagine what it must be like to hire or even to go for a job, because that's got to make you laxate. Either you're super discerning from the employee perspective about like, okay, I'm interviewing you. Do I want to work here, right? Like you said, you have to have better choice, or you're really kind of pompous about it and be like, well, if you don't hire me, or if I don't like what you have to do, I'll just go to the next one, like you said.
And also, you have to, and I wonder what your take is, Niall, on this, but you have to have a place to live, and protecting housing for certain economic levels is important, because we can't just refurb, the old shithole down on the Skid Row area and say like, hey, all you servers and bartenders, go live there. There have to be places where everyone can live. In my hometown of San Jose, you cannot live there, but there are low-income housing.
Yeah. You can get a tent.
Yeah. But there are protected low-income housing areas that people from the outside looking in probably think, oh, well, those are for the homeless, or those are for, like whatever, rehabilitation centers. It's like, no. Yeah. This is for people that do all the jobs that are not in the tech industry. This is so you can have an Uber driver, so you can have a bartender, a server, a dry cleaner. It's like people need to be able to work in different economic levels. And yes, space is limited, but it won't make the whole thing go around, because it's not one industry that keeps this industry going or this town going. It's multiple ones. So we have to, and in a development level, you mentioned like having retail or residential above your places. Yeah. Is that something you ever are interested in and possibly getting? I mean, what if you did that? What if you opened up a place where you had residential above, and all that residential area was protected by low-income housing, and all of those people that live there could actually be your tenants or your employees for your business?
I think it's great, but there's a cost to that too. So maybe someone like me who thinks that a project is going to cost X, and then adding 3 floors is going to cost X, there's definitely a cost.
But you could get government subsidy to do that, and so one of your ways of making money is by letting them help pay you for your property.
Agreed, but it's also like the planning that was just given to John Kane. He's gone up 40 stories, but a lot of those apartments have to be within a certain price range. That was part of the stipulation. That's planning, and I mean that's something that they all should do in regards to all these big buildings that are being built. That a certain percentage of the apartments or the condos in the building are available to Joe Blows like the rest of us, you know?
Well, it just makes me think about talking about differentiating yourself as an employer. Imagine that's a super pipe dream, but imagine that you could offer in your employment package residential housing as part of your compensation. That would be pretty lucrative.
It's not that ridiculous of an idea, you know. You start farming in people, get people in here, make it attractive. Like take the no's away, right? Like, why wouldn't you come to Raleigh? Well, there aren't good jobs. No, we have those. It's like there isn't a place to live. No, we have those now. It's like and it's a great place to raise a family.
I'm sure a smart business person listening to this could make those numbers work where it's like, well, if I can pay an employee this much, or I can just own the building and then provide them with housing and pay them this much. Oh, that works numbers and altruistically.
But I think that, you know, I think you do it. I won't say that I do it on that scale, but I do it. I have a couple of properties that actually are rented by employees. And I'm not hard on them, you know, in regards to prices. And they are downtown Raleigh, like off Glenwood.
Right.
So, so it's out there. I mean, it's definitely an idea. I also think that when you think about the evolution of the city to transportation and how we're going to get people around, because that is good, but again, what's the reality of it, you know?
Yeah.
Is it really going to happen? Should it happen? It probably should. It'll be a little bit while before that innovation really kicks in. But again, transportation, how do we get people in and out, which we're not quite there yet in Raleigh, you know?
No.
What politically with how this city, we'll just focus on Raleigh since that's where you're doing your business primarily. What are some of the like speed bumps that you're coming into, or even on a positive side, what do you think you've been able to get through here that maybe other places you otherwise wouldn't be able to do as a developer of multiple businesses?
I think you'll always hear people like me will always bitch that there was a difficult process, or, you know, whether it is or it isn't. You know, it's amazing when you do stuff in other cities that you see that, you know, maybe there is a big difference, or maybe our system isn't that bad, you know. I think there's been a lot of transitions recently with the city regarding permitting and all that sort of stuff. They've automated a lot of stuff. I think they're thinking about it correctly. They want to streamline because they're inundated. I mean, the explosion and growth here it's nuts.
Right. Well, no matter what, we're going to have a new mayor, right?
Yeah,
Nancy McFarland's going to step down. So that's going to change, at least, you know, the mayor tends to be like the champion of certain businesses. And we have to kind of align, you know, of course, for us in the food and beverage industry, we're going to be cognizant of those that are going to champion those ideals. So
there's been a lot of, I mean, I suppose if you think about Raleigh, there's glaring things that, you know, were upsetting for people in the bar business was, you know, way back in the whole sidewalk thing about outdoor dining. It was like too much ado about nothing. Like what? We went 10 circles and raised holy hell. 20 years ago, I had outdoor dining at the Hibernian and a beautiful railing around it. I changed it 3 times, you know, because of all of that nonsense. So that was all very silly. Now it's kind of a free-for-all. It's just seats out everywhere. So I think that was just... I just don't understand the whole process of it. I get it, but it was just rattling cages for no reason. Scooters. Some people hate them, some people love them. Scooters are incredible for business.
Yeah. Oh, man.
For any business, for, you know, Morgan Street Food Hall, transfer. You're a little bit outlying on a hot day, 85 degrees. Are you going to walk to that business, or are you going to get a taxi? Well, if you walk, you're going to be covered in sweat by the time you get there, so you stand on a scooter. I mean, and it was a notable difference. I mean, when they took those off the streets, we saw a decline in business with it. So I know there's a new company coming out, Gotcha.
Yeah, I heard they're coming back in a new form.
I hope they come up, but that should have been dealt with differently. I mean, that's innovative. That's the future.
Yeah. Because the need for parking lots is becoming less and less important because of Uber, Lyft,
all of that should have been planned out. That, you know, on the major thoroughfares downtown, there's one side of parking taken out or protected by parking outside it, and it becomes a thoroughfare for bikes and scooters. So don't just get rid of it, solve the bloody problem, because it is the future. So it's going to happen.
Yeah,
you know?
Kind of like haphazardly happened. With
it was just that there seems to be outcry, or this is terrible. And I know people get hurt, but I mean, people get hurt driving cars, you know?
Right.
And change the rules, you know, put a helmet on, give tickets to kids, get off the sidewalk, have blue zones where you can drop the scooters in so they're not blocking the sidewalks, you know?
Yeah.
Shit like that. But just, you know, you'll see them come back again. I suppose we'll eventually get it right. But, you know, what's going to happen in 5 years? 5 years we'll have little automatic vehicles, which will solve our transportation problem. So rather than spending $1 trillion or $1 billion on a high-speed local rail, use technology that's common, take a lane out, and you've got a robotic train that's just vehicles. I mean, that's the future,
right?
You know?
Yeah.
So things like that, I suppose, are just you kind of suck in, and you got to go. Oh, well, that was.
Well, how do we lead on that thing as opposed to just be reactive? Like let's be proactive, like you said. Like let's use the emerging technology.
Well, I do think though that whether we like it or not, it'll be introduced to us because technology will generally find a way, and innovation finds a way.
Sure.
And then what will happen after is the cost of doing that particular type of business will favour any other type of business. So I think it'll find us.
Yeah.
I just, you would hope that cities are receptive and understand that when it does raise its head, we say, okay, this is how we're going to implement this.
Those on the other side of the technology side tend to not go down well in history.
No.
That's true.
No.
There was one incident when you were reopening Hibernian, I think.
You're talking about fires again?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Well,
God, we're going back.
Just backwards to the political thing to see where we've come, because I want to see your perspective on it now. It was written about in the NNO about you wrote an expletive-laden email because they were delaying your holdup, something to do with parking or something like that. I don't know.
I think that wasn't the Hibernian. I think it was Beer Garden.
Oh, maybe.
And I think it was something silly. We need one parking space in the middle of the property for ADA, which you have all of the other egress for
American
ADA.
Disabilities Act.
And it was just, but then that zoning changed.
Okay.
So I think and I think it's happening is that in planning and in code writing, common sense has to prevail as well. It can't just be interpretation of a law or whatever. Yeah. So once that happens, and I do believe that's happening.
Okay.
I mean, I'll give it to the city, and I think that they've had their asses handed to them. It's busy. And they've evolved. And I think this new technology that they're doing in regards to the onboarding of permits and stuff like that, I think it's definitely getting it easier.
Okay.
But there's always going to be widgets, and there's always going to be a growth process to it.
Yeah, and what works for someone
that was code.
Doesn't always work for someone else.
That was a silly code. That was a code that and then, an inspector will take an interpretation and say, well, this is how I see it. And you go, well, that's daft, But I think they're getting it, and I think it's working better for them, and I think they generally do a great job.
Nice.
And Niall, I would be remiss if we didn't give you our newest sponsor's gift bag selection. It is Proof Alcohol Ice Cream. This right here is the Mocha Chocolate Moonshine. It's coming out of Columbia, South Carolina. We went across the border, but it's all good from North Carolina. But no, this is alcohol and ice cream blended together. It's 7% alcohol in a pint. This is pretty awesome. Thank you to Proof. We had Jennifer Randall on couple weeks ago. Her product was so awesome, and we just got so excited to work with her. So anyhow, go to proofalcoholicecream.com. You can actually get it over at Triangle Wine Company as well. Good friends of ours. They sell it there, so you can get it there. Use the promo code NCFB to get a discount. And Matt, what do you got? What else you got? You want to take us out of here? You got one more question?
I don't have any more questions, man. You've said it all, Niall.
Good.
Thank you so much for being here. Guys, if you are in the Raleigh area, go to Hibernian Pub, go to Morgan Street Food Hall, go to the Raleigh Beer Garden, and soon to be in Charlotte, go to the Charlotte Beer Garden. You will eat and drink very merrily.
Thanks for listening to the NCF&B podcast. And if you've stuck with us this long, review us on iTunes, and remember, 5 stars are encouraged.